Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter Podcast, everybody. Today we're going to be reviewing the right side of the bracket, um, and starting with oh my gosh, I'm doing everything wrong. But we are starting with the right side of the bracket, which is the West region, which actually contains the Michigan Wolverines. So that'll be nice to talk about Michigan. Round of 64, we have Arizona taking on that would end up being Wright State. Wright State would beat Bryant. I mean, those are complete toss-ups. You don't know who on earth is going to win those games. I think it was Wright State. Wasn't it Wright State? Yeah, I think Wright State ended up being Bryant. Yeah. I think Wright State did end up beating Bryant. I really can't remember though. But like, it's a 1-16 game. Unless you're Virginia, you're not losing those. So, but Arizona would end up winning this game. It wasn't much of a contest. The one below it, we'd have Seton Hall taking on TCU. I had Seton Hall winning this one. I thought it would be an interesting one, considering TCU's got a decent team, but I like Seton Hall's team. I liked them towards the end of the year. They've been playing really well. I thought Seton Hall, they're a very tough, scrappy team. I had them moving on to the next round. However, uh, TCU, my goodness, would absolutely dominate Seton Hall, blow them off the face of the earth, win by like 27, and would move on to play Arizona. Shocking blowout there in San Diego. Then we have in Pittsburgh the 4-12, or I'm sorry, the 4-13, 5-12 matchups. Houston playing UAB. I'm not a big fan really of Houston's team. I never really have been. I wasn't last year either. I picked them to get upset early. I picked them to get upset earlier again this year, and they keep proving me wrong. Houston, it wasn't necessarily a blowout against UAB, but they stayed in front for the majority of the game, and I don't believe they ever were trailing. But Houston would move on to the next round. They would knock off UAB. There was some people who were picking this upset. But definitely, but still, Houston would end up moving on. And then we had Illinois and Chattanooga. Now, I expected Illinois to move on in this one quite easily. They instead weren't leading for the entire game, and it really looked like they were going to get upset. But instead, in the last 30, 20 seconds of the game, they got their first lead and then won. They look terrible in this game though, and their coach even said it too. I forget what Brad Underwood's specific words were, but it was clear they did not look good. It's clear their coach thought the same thing. Something obviously was not right, but Illinois still pulled it off, and they moved on to the round of 32, of where they would take on the Houston Cougars. But now we go to Indianapolis, where we have Colorado State taking on Michigan. Many people were shocked, including me, that Michigan still ended up making it to the tournament. I thought there was no chance the Wolverines would be in it with their record. I didn't really think the Wolverines, first of all, deserved to be in, and then second of all, would be in. But they did, and they weren't even in the first four. They just were an 11 seed, and they got to play Colorado State. The beginning of this game looked ugly. This was a very popular upset. But in the beginning of this game looked ugly. Michigan was horrible in the first half. They immediately got down 15 in this game. 15 or 13. I think it was 15. They immediately got down very big in this game, but Michigan would immediately bring it back, reel it back in, and they would dominate for the rest of this game as they outscore Colorado State by 27 since that point. Michigan would win by 12, I believe. It was like 82 or 86-74. I don't remember. But Colorado State would take a ridiculous amount of threes. Not all of them went in, so not really all of them. Not all of them went in for Colorado State. This was not a good game for them. The Wolverines would move on to the next round. Michigan taking down Colorado State, and getting to the round of 32. Tennessee playing Longwood. That was an ugly looking game. Tennessee dominated Longwood. That was an ugly one to watch. Then we have 7 seed Ohio State taking on Loyola Chicago. Ohio State had looked really bad lately. I did not take them. I took Loyola to pull off the upset. They did not. Ohio State, or it was the other way around. Ohio State still wasn't looking fantastic, but Loyola looked terrible, and they paid for it. They got beat pretty good too. Ohio State would knock off the Ramblers, and then would take on Villanova, Delaware, which, I mean, we all know who won that one. I mean, it should have been pretty easy for them, and, well, duh, it was. Villanova would knock off Delaware, or I guess really the Michigan copies, pretty easily. And then we would go over here to the round of 32, which we have Arizona and TCU. My pick was Arizona, and I was terrified because they were this close to losing. Now, many people will talk about the very controversial call at the end of the game of where TCU had the ball. And honestly, I'd say you could easily have called a foul on that play right at the end of the half. Arizona would get a steal. They would go to dunk it, but it'd be too late, and this game would go to overtime, in which TCU would end up coming up just short, and Arizona would escape and move on to the Sweet 16. But I think TCU fans, I totally do agree with them. I think you easily could have called a foul on Arizona, and TCU could have gone to the line. But the refs did not call it. It's one of the many just poorly refereed games that we've had in this tournament, and it really is unfortunate. Once again, that a missed call like that can cost you the game. I mean, you never know what would happen at the line. They could have missed. I don't know if they would have been 1-1, but they could have missed a free throw. Never know. But yeah, not good luck for Arizona going to overtime. Still would pull it off, but not ideal. But I had Arizona. Fortunately for me, that was right. And then we had to have Houston taking on Illinois. Yeah, Illinois looked terrible in this game, and I was not confident with that pick after they nearly lost to Chattanooga. Shocker, they didn't beat Houston. They looked terrible. They could not shoot. They could not hit shots. They did not look like themselves. So I don't know what happened to them in the tournament, but they didn't look like themselves against Chattanooga. They didn't look like themselves against Houston. They got beaten both games. As Chattanooga couldn't actually pull it off. Houston did. So Houston would move on to the Sweet 16. They would take on the Arizona Wildcats. Then we'd have Michigan taking on Tennessee. And I thought this was where Michigan was just going to get absolutely pummeled. I did not see this game being very close. Strangely enough, we won this game. Yeah, I don't know how, but we won and beat Tennessee. It was a very impressive performance by Michigan. Well, I would say more Hunter Dickinson. He had probably what would be the game of his life. He was absolutely incredible in this game for the Wolverines. Tennessee would have a solid overall game, but Hunter Dickinson single-handedly would put Michigan into the Sweet 16. Without him, there's no way we would have knocked off the Volunteers. Incredible performance by Hunter Dickinson, knocking off the Volunteers, putting the Wolverines in their 5th straight Sweet 16. Yeah, I don't, I'm just as surprised as probably most of you are. That's 5 straight Sweet 16s for the Wolverines. It is a school record for Michigan. Not really, that's kind of shocking. And Ohio State would take on Villanova next. I really hoped that Ohio State could win this game, and then we'd have a Michigan-Ohio State Elite Eight. Michigan-Ohio State Sweet 16. I so badly really wanted it to happen because it would be a really incredible game, and we could beat the crap out of Ohio State again, which would have been awesome. But Villanova would end up doing it for us. Ohio State could not really pull ahead of the Wildcats, and Nova would head into the Sweet 16 to take on Michigan in what would be their second matchup since the 2018 since the 2018 championship game, of which the Wolverines came up short. And then we go to the Sweet 16 games, picking our new games out of these, and we have Arizona and Houston. Um, I'm just gonna stick with Arizona. Benedict Matherin's a great player. Christian Coloco. I'm gonna stick with the Wildcats. This is a really good team. Houston will put up a fight, but I'm still going to stick with Arizona in this one. Michigan and Villanova. I don't know what to do with this game because the question for me, because Villanova is a very, very veteran, experienced team. They have a lot of veterans on their team, a lot of guys who have been around for quite some time, including obviously Colin Gillespie, which there's my biggest question. Who is covering Gillespie for Michigan? Like, who? I mean, obviously, in both of these games that the Wolverines have won, we haven't really had Devontae Jones playing at all, which to me should be a sign get rid of him. I mean, or, well, not get rid of him. But like have him come off the bench, start Frankie Collins, and Devontae Jones can be a guy that like is a sixth man, guy who comes off the bench, makes a couple plays, and sets the tone from the bench. I mean, I think that's a great position for Jones to be in. Because he's not a starter in my opinion. He's not even close to a starter in my opinion. But I mean, I think he'll be perfect for a bench role, for a guy who comes off the bench and makes a couple good plays for you and puts you in like probably the same position you were before. I think he'll be perfect coming off the bench. But Michigan against Villanova. This one's in San Antonio. I'm not going homer here. I bet against them when they played Tennessee. I'm betting against them again. I don't see them beating Villanova. This team is too talented. There's too many. Colin Gillespie, I think, is going to have a play day. He'll knock off the Wolverines. I'm going to stick with the Arizona Wildcats knocking off Villanova. There's too much size for Arizona. I have them knocking off Villanova. They get to the Final Four and will continue to be one of the best seasons that Arizona has had in quite some time. So that's it for this episode. On to the next region. Adios, everyone.